So you have no experience selling final expense, but you want to know how it's possible as a new agent to make $10,000 cash money every single month selling final expense. And if that sounds like you, then you are at the right video, because in today's video, I'm going to give you the complete system from mindset, leads, training, and the entire numbers behind making $10,000 a month selling final expense, so you can see the entirety of the system and learn how to put it into place to get you the kind of results, making money that you want to earn selling final expense. So stick around. Hey, David Duford here at DeFord Insurance Group, where I train and recruit agents nationally to sell final expense, Medicare, and annuities, both face-to-face and over the phone. Please make sure you subscribe and like this video if you enjoy today's content. And as always, thank you so much for being here. So the focus of today's video is how to help those of you with no experience in anything insurance sales quickly and rapidly make $10,000 a month after expenses selling final expense. This is going to be an in-depth, lengthier video of mine going into all the nuances of mindset and putting the system together from a leads and training perspective to show you how it is actually possible, even as somebody who's brand new and has never sold final expense, that they can make a lot of money, upwards and possibly even beyond $10,000 a month net from your sales of final expense. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the most important, and this is probably your biggest hang-up. I've trained more than 3,000 plus final expense agents since 2013. I've had a lot of great producers, six-figure income earners, seven-figure agencies in my agency, but also a lot of people that didn't get anywhere in their career. Many of them just failed to launch. And this is the biggest thing, the biggest obstacle that is in the way of success for pretty much all agents, and that is the mindset to actually achieve high levels of success in life and certainly in final expense. Now, I know some of you are here to just see the numbers and see how many leads it would take and what the numbers would look like, but bear with me a minute because we're definitely going to cover that. But mindset, as I have grown to discover, is the most important differentiator of those who see success selling final expense fairly rapidly and those who just never get anywhere, thinking this business is a racket or an excuse to just sell leads and profit off of that. So the first thing about mindset that you need to think of is that, do you actually believe that you can make $10,000 in your first or second month as a new agent selling final expense? And this is very hard for a lot of us to believe in because we see that other people are successful. We see the kind of results that they get, but then we look at ourselves and we tend to downplay our own personal perspective on our ability to have accomplishments. And then the seeds of doubt start to sprout, and then we start to doubt what is actually possible. And that mindset that we create, that negative mindset, permeates through the decisions, the micro decisions that we make through the day, prospecting, talking us down from making that last call, talking us down from hitting that last door, even when we've been beaten up the whole day and we just think, oh, just forget about it, we'll just start tomorrow. Bottom line, you've got to believe that this is actually something that you can do, and also just as important, it's something that you should believe you are deserved of. This is also something that I think some people who don't think they should be successful, or that success is for the people with higher IQs or more money or better circumstances, and that success isn't something that they aren't destined to have. And again, you may think you don't have this mindset, but examine yourself. What is the kind of self-talk that's going on in your mind right now when you first saw this video about $10,000 and as a new agent making that? Was it something of doubt? Was it something of skepticism? Was it something that you felt immediately, yeah, that is something that I can do? This is the kind of thing you need to start examining first and foremost, because if you don't get your head on straight and really believe that you deserve and can have success, massive success, then you're going to shortcut everything else that we're going to talk about. So fixing this is the number one thing to do before we go any further. So take time, pause this video if you've got to, and examine yourself. Do you have the proper mindset in believing that this is something you can and something you should deserve? The next thing about mindset in the sense of running a system, as we'll talk about here in a minute with more clarity, is wrapping your mind around the proof or the law that there is strength in numbers when it comes to selling insurance. So what do I mean by strength in numbers? Well, what I mean is that you cannot just dip your toe in the water and buy a few leads here and kind of run a few appointments there and expect everything to pan out. It's quite the exact opposite. You have to go all in. You've got to get a lot of leads. You've got to run a lot of appointments. You got to put yourself out there so that you can yield the opportunity that is absolutely out there. And if you don't do that, if you don't expose yourself to as maximal number of leads that you can get your hands on, the likelihood of success to this level we're talking about is going to be exponentially reduced. Again, I've trained all sorts of agents, and the one thing I have seen with many of the six-figure final expense agents in my agency is that they all understand that they got to get out there, even despite their differences in their backgrounds and careers or pedigrees or lack thereof. They got to get out there and see the people and make things happen. And the way that you do this is buying a lot of leads. Fear doesn't get results. Fear of investing and going all in and not having a plan B is a surefire way to increase your odds of failure. So make sure that you understand, if you really want to make a lot of money, whether you're inexperienced or experienced, you've got to play your cards right. And in the final expense arena, it means you got to buy not just any lead, but the best leads, and buy the best leads at quantity. Again, what are the best leads you use? Of course, if you're face-to-face, I like to use direct mail exclusive leads. If you're telesales, if you can get your hands on live transfers, those are great. And if you can get any kind of halfway decent digital or telemarketing lead in volume, then this is how you get into it with the right leads. And as far as volume goes, for full-time agents, I love 25 to 30 direct mail leads. For face-to-face agents, and for full-time telesales agents, somewhere really between 75 and 100 digital telemarketing leads is going to give you so much opportunity that there just has to be deals in there. And again, point here in concluding with this little side note is that if you don't put the volume in, you're not going to expose yourself to the potential opportunity, and your ability to hit these high numbers are just going to fall off precipitously. The other thing, of course, is you got to see the people. So you have to have the mindset that life insurance is not about some automation gravy machine where you just click a button and people just beeline into an application process online and without talking to or asking questions buy life insurance. Of course, that's like the dream we all have, but it really is just a dream. It's not, there's no substance with reality. If you're going to get into this business, understand you got to work. You got to see people. You got to hustle, okay? So if you're brand new, the best advice I could give you is be willing to go work full-time 5 days, 6 days a week, working evenings, getting up early, going to see the people. Same thing if you're doing this on the phone. Pick up the phone and sell final expense at all hours of the day. Expose yourself to that opportunity, and anytime that you cut that short, you're, again, cutting short your capability to have any kind of resounding success. Now, the last thing here, of course, is ultimately you got to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. I can give you the entire system of success with leads. I can give you the entire success system with training, support, everything that you need, but you will not feel 100% secure about every little detail. It's inhuman to feel total 100% confidence for most of us. I know when I first started, I was uncomfortable. I was used to doing sales presentations in my office at my personal training gym. I wasn't used to doing sales presentations in people's home, much less calling them to set appointments or showing up at their house unannounced. But needless to say, I didn't need to be 100% comfortable to proceed. And knowing that I kind of sort of knew the script but didn't know it entirely, I didn't let that deter me. And that's the bit of advice that I would give you. I see so many people fail out of this business that just honestly didn't give it a chance. And of course, where I'm at now, looking back to where I started to now fast forward almost 11 years and seeing how much more money I'm making, the kind of freedom I get, I'm like, I wish people could see the difference. And maybe they would be that much more inspired to follow through on the hard stuff in the beginning to see what's possible. So I don't know exactly how to translate it to you guys, but you're going to ultimately, you got to take that leap of faith. You got to accept that you don't have to know everything when you first get started. You as a new agent can jump out there with a minimal acceptance of understanding of your products, your carriers, and your sales process and still get results. As long as in your heart of hearts you desire to help people and improve their lot in life, then you'll do just fine. You can always go back and fix things where, maybe you didn't quite know what product to give them, but now you do. You can always go back and do that stuff. But make sure your heart's in the right place. That's what matters more than the knowledge base, because that's ultimately going to come by application and feedback from the successes and failures you get. Now that we've covered mindset and the importance of getting your head on straight about the different aspects of the business, let's talk about the next important factor, which is the selection of leads that you choose to find and unearth prospects to then ultimately close. We'll first start with face-to-face final expense sales. And if you're wanting to write significant amount of production, if you want to take home $10,000 plus of net income after expenses, the number one source that most agents will tell you is their favored source for leads are final expense direct mail leads for face-to-face agents. Now, why are direct mail leads so good? Well, first of all, it takes a lot of time to fill out a lead. The client's usually thrown them away and has dismissed them, but something has happened now in their life. They read the lead and they're thinking about filling it out. But before that, they go talk to their spouse, get in an argument about it. Is it a scam? Is it a legit? And then they sit down and finally fill the thing out and then walk it back to the mailbox, stick it in there, and then it sends off. And the reason I bring this up is why direct mail is so special. There's way more engagement when you fill out a direct mail form than there is any other kind of lead that you can purchase. And what this leads to is a higher quality client that has a higher recall rate of actually sending the card in, and thus has a higher interest level and intent to find a quality life insurance product to take care of their final expenses. Now, if you're a telesales final expense agent, it's a little bit different. In the telesales space, there's really two types of leads that I think are really good to use. You can either use an inbound live transfer lead if you can get your hands on them at a reasonable price and with a decent quality vendor, or you can opt for an outbound type of lead where you call the lead yourself. And what we have seen work pretty well are Facebook leads in volume or some kind of telemarketed leads in volume. And now the reason we like these kind of leads versus some of the others out there is that, first of all, especially the outbound leads, that's more commonly what telesales agents do. They're affordable yet of decent quality, and then you can also buy them at scale. The thing with telesales, if you're going to write $10,000 plus in net income a month selling final expense over the phone, you're going to need a high quality lead that's reasonably priced. And for telesales, this kind of matches the profile of what we're looking for. You got to have volume in this business of any kind of outbound work, and both of those are good choices. And then if you can find a good live transfer vendor at a reasonable price and close 1 out of 4, those can be great sources of leads too. It's just, again, what I've experienced with live transfers, they're kind of here today, gone tomorrow type of leads. You'll do well for a couple of months and the vendor gets bid out and the price goes crazy, or there's just inconsistent quality of those leads. It's a very frustrating experience, but certainly if you can find a good live transfer vendor, then they're definitely well worth their weight in gold. Also, if you're an inexperienced agent and you're kind of wondering which route to go, I've heard Dave talk about telesales. I've heard Dave talk about face-to-face, and you can kind of see the pros and cons of both, but you're kind of confused what you want to ultimately commit to. What do you do? So here's my recommendation. Follow your instinct. If your instinct is telesales, you feel like you have a great phone presence, you got great tonality and energy, and just feeling on the phone is just a natural feel for you, do it. Likewise, if you feel the same about being natural in a face-to-face environment, follow your instincts and do it. What if you're down the middle? I generally recommend agents who don't know if they want to do telesales or don't know if they want to commit to face-to-face to commit to face-to-face, because the reason why is that telesales, the act of selling over the phone, I believe is a more complex skill to develop. You can absolutely do it, but without the physical presence, reading body language, creating eye contact, and the natural trust and rapport that's there in an in-person presentation in the client's home, it's a much more difficult sale to acquire. And if you're not totally convinced that you're a telesales pro, a stud in the rough, if you will, then I would recommend that you opt for face-to-face, because there's a lot more ease, quote unquote, at creating relationship and getting trust that you don't as easily get if you're selling over the phone. Okay, so now that we've covered the mindset to have, as well as the kind of lead options you should have as a new agent, the next thing we need to talk about is how do you get trained up properly to go out there and yield this kind of $10,000 net income or more goal that you have. So I'm going to give you some advice on what I've experienced running an insurance agency specializing in final expense since 2013, and kind of tell you what I think best practices are for studying and prepping and making sure that you expose yourself to the best training, because when you get out there, it's either sink or swim. And if you're going to go into battle, you're going to want to prepare ahead of time. So you want to make sure you prepare the best. So first of all, 70% of your studying time, the time that you do on your own, should be spent learning the script, rehearsing the script, and performing the script. Whether you're face-to-face or over the phone, learning the sales presentation is key. You've got to be able to communicate what it is you're looking to accomplish. You got to be able to create a connection to the client. You got to be able to explain why your product's better than the other, and you got to be able to confidently and competently close to get their commitment to buy from you. This is more important than understanding how the different carriers work. This is what you should spend 30% of your time learning, which is how the carriers work, how the underwriting works, certainly how to complete an application. But you shouldn't be spending the majority of your time becoming a product nerd, if you will. You should be spending most of your time learning how to connect and communicate with people, because that's ultimately what matters. People don't buy your insurance company, they buy you. They buy what you as the professional and expert recommends, not the other way around. So spend your time getting good at the presentation, practicing, rehearsing, performing it, and 30% of that time just getting comfortable with your carriers and be able to navigate between them, complete an application. Another good thing as a new and inexperienced agent that you should consider doing is reviewing past recordings of other agents' sales presentations, whether face-to-face, over the phone, even prospecting calls, setting appointments, or certainly door knocking. The reason this is good is because there's nothing that dispels the fear of this business better than actually hearing what it's like to run an appointment or to do a telesales call. When you actually hear what it sounds like to sell final expense, the immediate realization you get is that this isn't nearly as big of a deal as I thought. I'm just talking to normal people like grandma and grandpa, and they seem like decent people, and it's not as big of a task and as you manifest it in your mind. Again, we all fear what we don't understand, right? But when you understand what to expect and then you hear the script that you're learning in action and see that it actually works, it's a pretty inspiring thing. And I think what that's going to do is again, release the resistance that you have to doing the profession, increase your momentum and excitement, and thus give you that much more push towards the door of following through and calling on your prospects and taking action. Another thing to do if it's an option for you, certainly for face-to-face, consider doing ride-alongs. Even if you've got to travel a little bit to do a ride-along, it can be well worth the investment. Just to see another agent go out there and do what it is that you're intending to do is great. Same thing if you're doing telesales, maybe looking over somebody's shoulder at their office, making a sale, or certainly just listening in, maybe on a three-way call and hearing what they say, or just a plain old recording, can do a ton of help in getting your mind situated and fixated on being successful selling final expense. Last but not least, let's look at the numbers of how an inexperienced agent who's got the proper training, the proper support, mindset, and lead system can put this whole entire approach into action and show you numerically what it's going to take to hit that $10,000 figure every single month after expenses that you bank in your bank account, and let you know through showing you the numbers what kind of lead flow is going to be acceptable and generally necessary to hit the numbers, as well as what kind of activity it's going to take in order to give yourself the best odds of success. And then I'm going to give you some variables here that you need to consider as a new agent that you may not have considered, that a lot of other agencies won't talk about because it's too revealing. And but with the goal of you just having full disclosure and transparency on really what it takes on a numbers basis to be successful. So let's take this from the top. We're going to talk about first face-to-face sales, and then we're going to transition to telesales, and then we're going to wrap it up with the variables that you need to be concerned with that are going to have a huge impact on your ability to be successful as a new agent selling final expense. Now, before we get into a breakdown of face-to-face versus telesales, I want to talk about some definitions about how to track your numbers, so you as a new agent kind of understand what the potential is and kind of know where we're going to go with the numbers in case you get lost or confused, kind of know ahead of time what to expect. So first of all, the main thing to simplify this as much as possible is that your effort as a sales rep selling final expense over the phone or face-to-face comes down to three factors. Your gross commission, which is what you get deposited in your bank accounts on sales, minus your expenses, which is largely your lead expenses, also to an extent your chargeback rate as well, equals your net income. Again, net income is the money, the commission subtracted out your expenses. That's the money you get to keep after you pay for your leads and deal with chargebacks. So commission minus expenses equal net income. And again, the way that we derive commission is that your commission rate is time multiplied by your app volume. So again, in this example, we're going to show you an annual premium average. That is multiplied by the commission rate. That's what your dollar commission is, okay? So again, if you're brand new and you aren't aware of this, the commission on carriers varies by agency, certainly, and certainly by carrier, and more on that in a moment. But that'll have a profound impact on your numbers, okay? And then also your expenses, in most cases in this business, is going to be 95% lead costs. That's what I'm going to use as the main metric here, since most of our costs are lead costs. We're going to have ancillary costs too as well. Again, like gas and the CRM, if you're face-to-face or telesales respectively, and so on. But they're never going to add up to be a significant portion. And the last thing that's really important here is these estimates, you know, they'll vary. They're not set in stone. But what I'm considering here is that if you're a good agent, not a great agent, not a bad agent, that you'll close half of your face-to-face presentations, and likewise for a good agent, about a third of your completed pitches on the phone if you're a telesales agent. Okay, so here's face-to-face sales by the number. What we're going to be doing on the screen to the side of me is explain to you from the fruition of the leads to then the activity of presentations, and then based on some averages in the business, how much leads and activity and work you as a new agent is going to have to do to net somewhere at or slightly above a $10,000 a month net income. So first of all, the goal for face-to-face agents, I tell this to my guys all the time, is to complete 15 appointments every single week. This is the magic number 15 that's been in the business for decades, and it certainly applies to final expense. Hitting 15 presentations a week really averages out, I believe, the potential for this business. It makes it, if you can hit 15 presentations a week, things as far as new business sales, the ups and downs tend to smooth out a little bit. So I use this as the goal for all full-time agents to strive towards. And to get 15 presentations a week, what I'm wanting my agents to do, generally speaking, is by double that in direct mail lead volume. So in the purpose of today's training, since we're looking for the best way as a new agent to get these kind of results, we're going to use direct mail. You can opt another type of lead in. You probably have to buy more of those leads. But for the purpose of today's training, using the best leads, I want my agents to do 30 direct mail leads in order to get 15 presentations. Of course, to get 15 presentations, it's either doing all door knocks on the door of the leads, not cold knocks, or a combination of calling to set appointments, then door knocking in between. So out of those two combinations, you should get a total of 15 completed presentations. And then the best agents close 7 new final expense applications. What I've seen as the average case size in the business is around $800 annual premium in my agency. There's some strategies that we use to increase the premiums without putting pressure on the client to buy more than they can afford. And a lot more of my agents are writing in the $800 annual premium range. And of course, the annual premium, if you don't know, is the measurement stick that we apply a commission level to, which we're going to use as 100% commission in a moment. So 7 applications times $800 in premium gives us $5,600 in premium, okay? Is it 7 times 1? So yeah, $5,600 AP. So here's the thing, guys. Here's a few variables. We're not going to get to all of them. There's more after this. But a lot of these agencies won't tell you about expected fall off. Look, Mildreds, not all the Mildreds of the world keep their final expense policy. They change their mind, believe it or not. And it's good to expect that going into this and not be wishful thinkers. So about 20% of total production falls off the books, generally speaking. And what that means is that you can expect out of the $5,600, 20% to drop. So if we're averaging 100% commission in this example, and we'll talk more about that in a minute, $5,600 is what we get in gross commission. That's before any expenses or drop-offs. And we take off 20% of that, means that we have $4,480 left, okay? So we subtracted that $1,200 roughly, $1,120, and that's for chargebacks. And so that's money that we're not counting towards our first year income goal, okay? Makes sense? Now, out of that out of that remaining 80%, because 20% is going to fall off, so we don't count that, we're going to anticipate we get an advance commission of approximately 75% of our production. Now, some carriers advance 75%, some carriers advance less than that, or some pay as earned. I think 75 is a good number, just a good estimate. So let's just hit 0.75 to estimate the cash flow. We have a cash flow basis of $3,360 up front. So this is what I would call our upfront cash flow money. Now, if I take out the advance, then what would happen is that I would make substantially more than what we're about to make for the first year. But I think it's important as a new agent to make sure that you're calculating your net income first as a new agent on a cash flow basis, meaning what am I making every single month? It's not enough to say, hey, I made $16,000 this month, but you actually made $12,000, because if you run your budget on $16,000 personally, but you only net income on a cash flow basis of $12,000, well, that's $4,000 that is unrealized because it hasn't been all 9 months if they haven't passed and you haven't had a payout in months 10, 11, 12. It's not a good business practice. I want you to think about your cash flow basis and estimating what your returns are. So in this example, it's $3,360 that is advanced in commission. Now, if you're using direct mail leads, there's different price points for leads. I'm going to go ahead and use, let's call it, our leads are between 1,000 to 1,200 for direct mail for 30 leads. I'm just going to say 1,100. So if we subtract out 1,100, then we have a net income basis of $2,260. And if we multiply that 50 weeks, then we are at a gross income for the year of $113,000 on a cash flow basis. And if you divide that by 12, it's just shy of $10,000. Of course, if we added in that 25% that's unadvanced, then that's going to shoot up a tremendous amount, well over the $10,000 a month figure. The point is, guys, if you're looking to net an income, and it's approximately around $10,000, give or take, depending on if you use the cash flow basis for estimating net income like me, or if you take the whole year in perspective, which is fine to do as well, you're going to need to have about 30 direct mail leads a week, not to mention the training, the support, and all the other stuff as well. But from a numerical basis, 30 direct mail leads a week is probably a good target to go for, as long as you hit 15 presentations, and as long as you close about half of those presentations, and average about 800 AP, and have the commission level we talked about. Okay, so if we do the same thing for telesales, it's going to be very similar in its arrangement. I won't go through all the details like I did on why we do what we did, but if we buy 75 telemarketed leads and the price is $15 a piece, that's $11.25, and that's generally what I would expect for a telemarketed lead. There are digital leads that are a little less expensive than that you could buy as well. You can also self-generate your own Facebook marketing leads too, and possibly pay even less than that. But this is a good place to start. Let's say you do 20 pitches out of the 75 you purchase, because a lot of the telemarketed leads just aren't going to pick up the phone, or they won't listen to you very far, and you won't do a full pitch. I think having a goal of doing 20 full pitches is a great goal. And generally speaking, I expect my agents who are selling telesales to close about a third of their pitch presentations, okay? So that's going to lead out of 20 pitches, around 6 to 7 closes. Again, same average annual premium, and that's going to give us around 5,200 AP, 20% fall off. And again, if I do the math here, we do a 5,200 AP, we do a 20% fall off, advance of 75%, and then we subtract out 1125. Then we have a net cash flow basis of $19.95 times 50 weeks, gives us about just shy of $250, $100,000 net income on a cash flow basis. But when you circle back and add in the 25%, you guys can do the math on your own. You'll see it's going to be closer to that $10,000 a month figure. So as we wrap this up here and kind of give you the full course breakdown on what it takes to be a successful agent with no experience selling $10,000 and netting an income of $10,000, a couple of things that you really need to be concerned about. And this is the most important section we're going to talk about. You don't need to get off this video, because as you choose an agency, or as you're thinking about joining an agency, these variables are going to be huge, and they can have a tremendous impact. And we'll try to show you some numbers here on the screen that kind of demonstrate the point. So the first thing is, what are you actually getting paid per final expense policy sale? A lot of agencies say is, well, commissions don't matter. It's how you're trained and you got the best leads and all this stuff. And while there's certainly a kernel of truth to that, it's not the complete picture. You have to make sure that you maximize your commission level as much as humanly possible. Because if you have good training and you have the choice between two agencies with great training, doesn't it make sense just to work with the agency that's going to give you the best upside potential to maximize your commission on each sale? Hopefully the answer would be yes. Because if you choose an agency that maybe is drunk on the Kool-Aid, that likes to play pyramid scheme games, and not necessarily concern itself with your education and training as an agent, you'll likely find the commission levels are going to be lower. And what will happen is all of the numbers that I've showed you on the screen will take a huge hit to the extent that it will take food off your table and make this tough business that much lucrative. And I want to show you an example on the screen here to demonstrate exactly what I mean. So there's a handful of companies that offer commissions in the final expense space with leads you got to pay for at 60%, 70%, even 80%, somewhere in those ranges, which is very low compared to agencies like mine that start agents at the 100, 110% level, and as well as many others. And what happens if you're starting on a low commission level, it totally just takes the wind out of your sail and makes a huge difference. So just for this sake, I'm going to show you the face-to-face example with not 100% commission, but with a 70% commission. You're going to be shocked at how much less money that you would make if you're a face-to-face agent. So again, to go through the same numbers again, just to make sure we're on the same page, if I close 5,600 in AP a week, I lose 80% of my cases, and I get an advance of 75%, and my out-of-pocket costs are $1,125. I'm netting a cash flow income of $2,235. Write that down because we're going to compare this and we're going to do the math about the difference. Now let's do the same numbers, but do this at an average 70% commission rate. So we've got 5,600 in AP. We multiply that by 80%. That's what's still on the book. So we take 20% off. We take an advance of 0.75. But now we're going to take only 70% on average instead of 100. So our before expenses, our net income before expenses is $2,352. And when we take out $1,125 for the cost of leads, we are now left with $1,227. Remember, in our last example, we had $2,235. So what's the difference between $2,235 cash flow net income and $1,227? It's $1,008. Then that's just on cash flow basis. And if we multiply that by 52 weeks, your difference is $52,416. $52,416. And that doesn't even count the 25% of non-advanced commission, so it's even higher into that. So why do I bring this up to you? Why does this matter? Because who you choose as an agency is profoundly important on your likelihood of success. Imagine taking $52,000 off the table. Do you think that's going to make a big difference in your business? Yeah, absolutely. And do you think that if you have a couple of rough months where you could have made $2,200 and change and instead you made $1,200 and change, do you think that that difference could show up and maybe diminishing your bank account reserves that much more, putting stress on your life and kind of forcing you to make decisions you don't want to make about the business? You're absolutely right. And so the point to all of this, guys, is one of the most important variables that you need to be looking at as a new agent is what the commission levels you're going to be averaged out at. Most agents don't ask this. They're bewildered by the BS. They see the cars, the watches, the stacks of cash, and they think that's the answer to their money problems when it's not. It's the numbers. And needless to say is the training there, but the bottom line is that if the numbers aren't in your favor, this business sucks, okay? And there's a lot more of you out there looking at businesses that suck, that have terrible commissions, that maybe say they're a certain commission level, but they really aren't when you look at the actual comp grid. So bottom line, guys, the thing with this business is that, yes, I think, and I've been doing this a long time, and I've seen this happen time and again, you can make $10,000 out the gate selling final expense. But you've got a lot of factors that are riding on this possibility of success in this line of business. You got to make sure you've got the mindset, the leads, the training protocol down pat. you got to make sure the numbers are actually in your favor. And you got to have an organization that's got your back. Because if any of this stuff is out of kilter, bottom line, what happens is you're going to be in a real tough position. And like a lot of people, you're going to probably fail. And not just fail, but be in financial strife. That's a problem that a lot of agents don't talk about in this business, is they get recruited into this business in a whirlwind of passion and excitement, but they don't understand what the consequences are for not having all of these issues as a new agent that wants to sell a lot of insurance align in their favor. So bottom line, guys, I hope this training helps you out. I know it was lengthy, a lot of moving parts here, but this is really designed for that inexperienced new agent to give you the entire breakdown on how to hit a $10,000 net income goal, selling final expense over the phone or face-to-face, and to see all of the factors that go into it. Not to just throw some numbers on a board and hope that it makes some kind of impact and yay, it's on paper, it must be true. I wanted to give you the full scope of what it takes from mindset down to the actual activity. So I hope I accomplished that and helped you out. If you'd like to learn more about joining DeFord Insurance Group, of course, you can always check out daviddeford.com/FAQ to learn more about how my final expense agency works and what I'm looking for in new recruits across the country. And if you got any comments or questions, leave them below. And as always, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Thank you.